welcome to Beyond the Garden, the vegetarian cooking experience that explores healthy but very, very tasty vegetarian cuisine. Wow, do we have a very tasty menu that we're going to prepare today. Most of the times when people think about vegetarian cooking or vegetarian dishes, they think about salads, they think about tofu, or they may think about bland tasting dishes that don't really taste well, lack of seasoning, not very filling. But what we're going to do on this cooking show, on this cooking journey, is we're going to show anyone that's interested in being a vegetarian, anyone that's dabbled in a little bit, that has a loved one or a spouse that's a vegetarian and don't know how to cook great tasting food for them, we're going to show them how to do all that. And today we're going to cook a well-known comfort food, shepherd's pie. This is a delicious and very filling and very tasty recipe, and honestly I never had shepherd's pie before I tried this recipe. I never ate it with ground beef, but what we're going to do is we're going to use this recipe, use some vegetables and vegetable protein, and then to accompany that we're going to make a delicious peach non-dairy ice cream. It's very, very quick, very, very simple. You're not going to need a lot of ingredients, but it's a very, very tasty dessert. So let's get started with our shepherd's pie first. Now, in order to make the shepherd's pie, there are a couple of different ingredients that we have to combine together, because all in all, it's like a one big hearty pie. So we need our mashed potato topping, and so what we have here in this pot, I have boiling, and let me turn this up just a little bit so we can get it boiling. We have 4 to 5, you can use 5 medium Idaho potatoes. Just peel those and chop them into cubes and put them in some water, and you're going to need to let these boil for about 20 minutes until they soften. So we're going to let these boil, but we'll get back to these later and we'll make some the mashed potato topping. You also need mushroom gravy. You can buy mushroom gravy canned, but for vegetarians you may not want to do that because a lot of them have some type of fatty flavor or beef flavor added to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our own mushroom gravy so they can go inside. We can mix it up with our peas, we're going to mix it with carrots, and we're going to mix it with our vegetable protein. So this is going to be a really great dish. Let's get started with our mushroom gravy. What we're going to do is we're going to take some olive oil, just go ahead and drizzle it in there. I love olive oil, you can never use too much of it, just get that drizzled in there. And the good thing about this recipe is that it doesn't take long at all. The prep work is very, very simple. It doesn't, once you put it in the oven, you don't have to worry about it. It takes about 20 minutes to bake. So once you get the prep and everything out of the way, it's a very, very easy dish. And what we're going to do is we've got some garlic here. We've got about 1 clove of garlic that's already been diced up. So we're going to go ahead and put this in here. What we're going to do is, now that we have the garlic in here with the olive oil, we're going to make a base for this gravy, for the mushrooms. So we need to let the mushrooms get in here and brown up just a little bit. And what I use here, keep it simple. If you want to use the whole mushrooms and dice them up, and you can, but I say why work harder if you don't need to. I just went ahead and bought 8 ounces. You can get them at any grocery store. 8 ounces of clean, sliced, fresh, regular button mushrooms will do just fine. If you want to get creative with it, you're more than welcome to use something else. You can use portobello mushrooms if you want to add them in there. And I'm just going to add a little bit more olive oil to this. I love mushrooms. These 8 ounces of mushrooms may look like a lot, but as vegetables cook, you know, they cook down and they tend to thin out a little bit. Put this on top. And the main thing is just to get this seasoned here a little bit, and get the mushrooms brown, get them tender. Because don't forget, everything that we mix together is going to have to cook in the oven for an additional 20 minutes. And this garlic smells really good with these mushrooms. Go ahead and let those brown a little bit. Now the potatoes, this and the baking is actually the longest part of the recipe, because like I said, the potatoes have to boil for about 20 minutes. and then the shepherd's pie has to cook in the oven for another 20 minutes. So altogether, you're looking at about 40 minutes of cook time for this dish. And as I mentioned before, we are going to do that yummy peach non-dairy ice cream, which really only takes about 5 minutes to cook. So what we're going to do is we're going to let these mushrooms cook down a little bit, and we're going to continue to let our potatoes boil, and then we're going to finish up the gravy. When you get back, we're going to start to put everything together. Welcome back. Now we're just letting our mushrooms cook down. You can totally see the difference now. They're a lot more softer. They're definitely browning up, and the garlic and the mushrooms are infusing very, very well. I wish you were here because they smell great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our gravy to the next level. Now that we have the basis for our mushroom gravy, what we're going to do is we're going to add in, I happen to find a brown gravy mix to it. And with the brown gravy mix, what we're going to do is add that slowly to the mushrooms and the garlic and the olive oil that we have in here. This is a brown gravy mix. Like I said before, you don't want to use the canned mushroom because it does have beef extract. Even some of the powdered brown gravy or mushroom gravy that you find in your stores, you have to be very, very careful and look and read the back of it and make sure that it doesn't have any type of beef flavoring or beef fat to it. This, I found just a regular brown gravy powder mix, which is going to work great. If you can't find this, you are more than welcome to use flour. Just season the flour with salt, pepper, garlic, and you're good to go. So we're going to go ahead and turn the mushrooms down on low. And we're going to start to add in our powdered gravy, brown gravy mix. And this is about 4 tablespoons. So we're going to add this in and just stir it up. Now, for every 2 tablespoons of this brown gravy mix that we're using, you're going to use 3 1/4 cups of water. So this is thick. It's thickened up. And now we're going to start to pour our water in. I have 1 1/2 cups, because like I said, I'm using 4 teaspoons of the brown gravy mix. So I have 1 1/2 cups of water. Go ahead and stir that in. You can hear our potatoes bubbling over there. We're putting that in there. Turn that up so we can get this boiling. And you can get creative with your gravy. I mean, you can use vegetable broth instead of water to add a little more seasoning to it. You can cut up onions in here and let the onions brown and caramelize with the mushrooms. That's always great. And the vegetable broth will actually be great if you don't find the brown gravy mix and you use regular flour. I would suggest using that vegetable broth because it will definitely add some flavor to the flour. Shepherd's pie, like I said before, I've never really had this before. I've always, growing up, I had the pot pies that my mother used to buy that were frozen. And then I discovered this recipe, and I'm telling you, way, way better. Way better. Go ahead and add some more water in here and continue to stir. And gravy is one of those processes that if you do it right, it pays off in the end. You just have to be careful with how much. And of course, you can always fix your mistakes. If you put too much brown gravy mix in or you put too much flour in, you can always add more water. And vice versa. So, I'm going to add some more water in here. See that it's thickening up nicely. Now the shepherd's pie recipe calls for about 12 ounces of gravy, but that's always to your taste. If you want to like your shepherd's pie with a little more juice, a little more flavor, then you may want to use a little more gravy. That's how I do. I like mine moist and a lot of flavor, so I tend to lean with more gravy in my recipe. So now that we have a couple things going on here, we have our brown mushroom gravy with garlic and olive oil simmering and thickening up. And back here we have our Idaho potatoes that should be softened and ready to come off and be made into mashed potatoes for our shepherd's pie layer. Once you come back, we're going to put all this together and start to put our shepherd's pie in the oven. Alright, welcome back. Now that our mushroom gravy is done and it tastes, I had to take a little taste test, it tastes delicious. And I've got our mashed potatoes off of the stove and now I put them in the bowl. And now what we're going to do is we're going to mash these up. It's just your typical normal mashed potato recipe. I always like to add something a little different to mine to spruce it up a little bit. I'm going to use 2 tablespoons, about 2 tablespoons of, you can use butter, margarine, or anything else. What I've chosen to use is actually the Smart Balance, which is great because it's healthy for you and it tastes, I mean, it doesn't taste any different. I usually use margarine or vegetable oil spreads and it doesn't taste any differently. So we have that in there. Let me go ahead and season this with some salt and pepper right now. And as always, salt and pepper is a personal or individual taste. Garlic salt in mine. And it's best to do this or to make your mashed potatoes, of course, when they're hot because then it melts everything. So I've got my little masher here and my most important thing is to get the Smart Balance spread in here and to mash that around so that it melts. Go ahead and mash that in there. And then we're going to start to add in some milk so that we can go ahead and make it creamy. And you can use a couple of different options. We can use milk, which we're going to use 2% milk. If you want to make this vegan friendly, and you can use the Smart Balance still for a vegan version of the mashed potatoes, but you can use a liquid non-dairy creamer, which you can find anywhere and is near the creamers in the dairy section, but make sure it says non-dairy liquid creamer. You can use that or you can use whipping cream if you choose and you want your mashed potatoes to be a little creamier. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with 3/4 cups of milk and just pour it in here a little at a time so that it meets your consistency. Some people like their mashed potatoes very, very creamy. Some like them thick and hearty where it sticks to your ribs. I like mine in between. So we're going to go ahead and mash these in here. And I love mashed potatoes. This is what really makes the shepherd pie. Because not like your traditional pot pies where you have like the crust on the top. This is actually mashed potatoes. And I look forward to every Thanksgiving because of the homemade mashed potatoes. So we're going to add some more milk. I want mine a little creamier. Because this has to spread on top of the filling of your shepherd's pie. So you want to make sure you have enough to spread it on top of your peas and your carrots and your vegetable protein. I'm getting a little closer to how I like it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some cheese. Now you may not have seen a shepherd's pie with cheese, but I love cheese, so I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle it in there and actually just put everything up in there. And once again, it's all to taste, and you don't have to add cheese at all. I love cheese. And if you don't like cheddar, you can spruce it up with mozzarella. You can do smoked Gouda. I love smoked Gouda. That is coming out nicely. And you just mash it in there. And I think I'm just going to add a little bit more milk in there. Who said vegetarian dishes couldn't be thick and hearty? This will definitely fill you up. Go ahead and mash it around. And I would suggest, I mean, if you have the time, some people like to make dishes like this, but they try to find ways to make shortcuts and so things don't take as long. Instant, I wouldn't really say use instant mashed potatoes, but if you have to, definitely use milk instead of water to make your instant mashed potatoes. It'll give that more real taste to it. So now that we have our mashed potatoes exactly where I want them, what we're going to do now is we're going to start to work with our filling. Look at this. Look at all the cheeses. You know, we've got the salt and pepper in here. It looks really good. I mean, I could just eat this entire bowl by itself without even putting it on the shepherd's pie. But you have your mashed potatoes here. It's a thick consistency. I've added cheese, which is an addition. You don't have to add cheese to it, but I think it adds a little flavor to it. So now that we have our mashed potatoes done, what we're going to do is we're going to move over to our shepherd's pie filling. So what we have here is we have Morningstar meal starter. So it's just a regular ground crumble that you can use. And we have just one bag of the vegetable protein. And most people use this filling for like tacos, spaghetti, things like that. So this, of course, is the substitute for the ground beef, and you want to use all of it. It doesn't matter whether it's thawed or whether it's frozen, but go ahead and use one bag, 12 ounces. Put that in there. Now, some recipes call for canned peas and carrots. I try not to use canned food as often because of so much sodium and it's not as fresh. So I would suggest using frozen. So I have a bag here, 16 ounces of peas and carrots. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. Use the whole bag and put that in there. Go ahead and just mix this around a little bit. And everything, like I said, is going to break up. So yeah, you have your water, you have your moisture. You don't have to add anything else to this pan. Like, you don't have to worry about actually adding. Look at that, all those colors. You've got your carrots, you have your peas in here, and you have your vegetable protein in here. It looks beautiful. You don't have to use any type of oil base or any margarine or anything because it's not going to stick. So now that we have that, and we have that in our pan, clean up my mess here, we're going to add our mushroom gravy that we made a couple minutes ago. So we get that, and you just pour it in there. You just go and just pour it in there. You got the fresh mushrooms. Got our fresh mushrooms and our gravy and our peas, carrots, and vegetable protein. And just want to stir it all around and make sure that every little piece gets a little bit of that gravy. It looks so nice. So you just mix that around in there. This, like I said, is a very simple recipe. Very, very simple. It doesn't take much time at all. So now that I've got this and everything is mixed in here together, we've got our peas, our carrots, our mushrooms, our vegetable protein, gravy, and we have our mashed potatoes that are just waiting to be poured on top of this shepherd's pie. Let me go ahead and preheat. Go ahead and preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Get the oven going a little bit, and let me go ahead and pour on here. We've got our mashed potatoes. Pour those right on top. That smells good. Pour that right on there. I just want to eat these mashed potatoes. Put them on top. Now spread it out. It's the top, it's the crust, if you will, of this shepherd's pie. So just go ahead and spread that around. Make sure you get to the corners. Spread it out. And just spread all the mashed potatoes around the corners. Look at that, how nice that looks. Look at that, that looks really, really nice. And it tastes even better. So you have everything in your vegetable protein, you've got your carrots, you've got your peas, mushroom gravy, and now you have your mashed potatoes with cheddar cheese or no cheese if you don't want any, or your own cheese blend if you will. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this in the oven, 350 degrees, for about 20 minutes. You come back. While this is in the oven baking, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make our peach non-dairy ice cream treat. See you when you get back. Alright, thanks for coming back. Now to the delicious part of everything. We have our shepherd's pie in the oven, and I'm going to take that out and we're going to set it off to the side, and we're going to let that cool a little bit. I'm so anxious and excited to see what it looks like. Oh, it looks great. Put this here on my little cooling rack. This looks delicious. delicious. Oh my goodness. So we're going to plate that up because of course I'm going to need to eat some. It's nice and brown and golden on the top, and the mushroom gravy is bubbling up from the bottom. It looks really, really nice. Go ahead and turn the oven off. Put this off to the side. Now, as this cools off, before we plate this up, we are going to make that peach non-dairy ice cream that I referred to a little earlier. Now this is fantastic. This is a great simple dessert to make. It's vegan friendly. My father's a vegan, so I just started getting into vegan cooking recently. It's very interesting what they can and what they cannot eat. It's a very, very strict diet. So if you thought being a vegetarian was very strict, try being a vegan. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with our peach non-dairy ice cream. We're going to use 16 ounces of frozen peaches, doesn't matter. And the great thing is with this recipe, it's so versatile, you can use any fruit you want. You could use strawberries if you wanted to. You can use bananas if you wanted to. You can use practically anything that you wanted to use. Now with this, just make sure that these are broken up. So we're going to pour, we have 16 ounces of frozen peach slices in our food processor. Now you use frozen peaches, it makes things a lot simpler in the end. You could use fresh peaches, fresh slices of peaches, but you would use 4 cups of those and make sure that they're frozen beforehand. So if you use your fresh peaches, cut them up, slice them up, put them in a baking sheet in the freezer and let them freeze first before you do anything with them, before you work with them. So that we have our 16 ounces of frozen peaches in here. What we're going to do is we're going to add in, let's see, we've got a 1/4 of vanilla extract, a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Just pour that in there. And if you want, you can just use a capful, easier to measure out. And go to my fridge. We're going to use a cup of vanilla soy milk. Now, a great kind of twist to this recipe is that this is just regular vanilla soy milk. If you've ever tried the very vanilla soy milk, it is delicious. You could use a cup of that and it'll make it a little sweeter, and it tastes so good. I love to use that on my cereal. So now that we've added our cup of vanilla soy milk, we're going to use a cup of light brown sugar. Now the trick to this is you've got to make sure that it's tightly packed so that you get your full 1 cup. You don't want to just sprinkle it in there and just let it sit and think that you have a cup. You definitely want to pour in and press down to make sure that you have your 1 cup, your full 1 cup of brown sugar. If you want it a little sweeter, by all means use dark brown sugar if you want. So we're just going to pour that in here. Set this off to the side. Make sure that gets in there. Everything off to the side. And a trick also is to, when you use this, or when you're making this recipe, you definitely want to make sure that you save some of the peaches, or 2 of them, so that you can use them as a garnish later. Or you can just slice up some fresh peaches and put them on top of it after you get finished. So now we're going to make sure this is on here tightly and secure. And we're going to go ahead and just start off with a pulse. Continue to let it go a little bit longer. Yeah, we're going to let that go for just a little bit longer. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to get my dishes ready so that I can serve it up. That should about do it. And you definitely want to serve this immediately while it's frozen. And that's the trick. You use your frozen peaches. You don't have to worry about freezing it later. It's quick, it's simple, it's easy. So let's go ahead and first plate up our shepherd's pie. Then we're going to go ahead and serve these up. Alright. Can't wait. Go ahead and dig into this. Now with this shepherd's pie, like I said, there's so many different things that you can do to it to make your own. If you like spicier food, you can definitely add cayenne pepper to this if you wanted to. Like I said, the cheese in there is just an option. There's so many different things you can do to this. You can add different vegetables in here if you wanted to. You can add string beans. You can even add asparagus. I love asparagus. Look at that. That is delicious. Look at it. All the gravy and the peas and the mashed potatoes on the top. Look at that. We have our main dish ready to go. Let's get our dessert ready as well. I have a big sweet tooth. When I found this recipe, I was like, you know what? It's healthy. It's peaches. It's non-dairy. So I think I went through one of these in like one night. Go ahead and scoop that up in there. And this is quick and easy. And like I said before, you can do this with any fruit. It doesn't take any time at all. And your vegan friends and family will thank you and love you for it. Doesn't that look delicious? You may have to try this again with strawberries and maybe strawberry bananas. Go ahead and put that off to the side and garnish it with our peaches. And you can add mint to this as well. It's all up to you. Doesn't that look fantastic? So over here you have your shepherd's pie. It's your entree, and it's filled with a lot of comfort foods, but it's also very healthy. You have your vegetables in here. You've got your mashed potatoes, and you have your gravy and your peas and your carrots. It's a very filling, very nutritious meal. And this by itself, you can eat by itself. You have your vegetables, you have your protein, you have your carbohydrates. You have everything right here. And then you have your dessert, where you have your non-dairy vegan peach desserts, where it was just simple, where it was frozen peaches. You have your light brown sugar, vanilla extract, and your soy milk. And there you go. I don't know about you, but all this cooking has made me definitely very, very hungry. So I'm gonna dig into this. And just remember, the next time that you're preparing a vegetarian cuisine, go beyond the garden. It's tastier on the other side. Until next time, take care.